Okay. In any path of healing or transformation, change is going to cause a ripple that moves outside of you. And people are going to be affected by that. People are going to notice and shift, and they're going to talk. And let them talk. It is such a natural part of being to want to be able to process change. And whether you perceive it as negative or positive, it is a natural reaction to want to respond to, whether it's towards you or towards others. However, people do their talking, that's theirs. Let them talk. Let people talk. Don't let them pull you out of your center. When you're in transformation, when you are changing, when you're learning, when you're growing, when you're blossoming, or when you're peeling off layers and you're standing raw, you already feel destabilized because that transformation is underway. And whether you, let's say, are on board with what is shifting inside of you or not, it is important to ground in yourself and not get pulled out of yourself by the words of others. And I know that's easier said than done, but let them talk. Because as with any communication, when you speak, the words leave you and they travel over to whoever is going to be receiving that communication. And they get absorbed through all of their filters, not your filters, but their filters. And the words and the communication and the body language come in through all of their filters, and it elicits something that is part of their own inner world, their own inner universe, that has nothing to do with you. It can be their own ideas about you, but it still triggers something deep within them or within them. And change works the same way. You start some kind of transformation and it shifts your behavior, it shifts your words, it shifts the way you express and the way that you are, the way that you be in this world. And when that happens, that causes the ripple. It goes outwards and it gets filtered in through somebody else's filters of the world, their own map of the world. And it lands and elicits something within them. And from that space, they respond. And from that space, it's through their own filters on whatever they absorbed from your communication, from your change, from your transformation. But the response is their own. It has nothing to do with you. And so when you are in that process and you allow other people's words coming from their own filters in their space to penetrate in, because then, it works both ways. And so it comes out of their filters into your world and you absorb through your own filters and it elicits some state or triggers some state within you. And it goes on back and forth through all these filters and through all of the, on whatever you hear, sense, see, feel from the other. And it goes back and forth and back and forth. Now, when you become aware that whatever some of this process and whatever someone is responding back to you, it really comes from they are a separate being with a different experience of life, with a different map of the world. Now, it may resonate with you, or it may be someone that you love or trust, or someone that you distrust innately. And so the response that it's eliciting inside of you comes from there. And if you're able to separate that from yourself and really see that their words are about them. Now, I'm going to give an example. If you are in transformation and you decide to quit your job and you start speaking that, truth, that reality for yourself, that that's what you're thinking, that's what you're feeling, and you put it out there. And this happens with so many of my clients. They put that out there. And then what ends up happening is they get that elicited response from the other. They get somebody else's feedback that comes from their own fears or their own desire. And I'll break that down even more. Like if they are a person who needs security and financial income to be very regular and clear, and that they need to know that way in advance, they need to know for the next, 24 months I'm set and I don't have to think about anything. And then somebody comes to them, or you go to them with your change. You want to quit your job and you don't know what you're going to do next. Like, say that's the scenario. You don't know, but you can't keep doing what you're doing. You're not happy and you've come to your boundary, and it's only draining you to continue this. And so you bring that to someone who has that value and that need for financial security for that set amount of time or indefinitely. And their response is coming from that space, along with all other filters that they may have. I'm trying to make this very simplified. And their response is going to be one of fear. What are you going to do after? What if you don't find a job? What if this? What if that? Are you really thinking it through? Why don't you try this instead? Instead of stopping what you're doing, then continue and try to find something in the meantime. Now, if you are a person who is battling that environment within your world internally, that you are trying to face your own fear of safety and your own need, then that's going to add more fear, or trigger another fear inside of you, when actually it is theirs. It is their map of the world that is responding. And it's not to say that we're not allowed to listen to others or to take advice from others, but it's recognizing that that's their world. That's what, their words are coming out of concern or love for you, but it's coming from a space where they are feeling triggered. Now, it can also happen on the other side, that someone who dreams, I have a mirror here that's kind of balancing, and it just shifted, so we'll see. I'm trying to get more light in for the shoot, and so we'll see what happens. So it can happen on the other side as well, that someone desires, to be able to travel the world, and you've decided to quit your job and spend a year traveling the world. And then it ignites all of this excitement inside of them, and they're all for it. And perhaps you perceive that and you take that as they're being really positive and they're being supportive and all of these things, but their response still comes from a space that is part of them. And again, I don't mean that we're not allowed to take any information or any communication from other people, but when we can separate that from ourselves, then we can be clear in what it is that we need, what our yes, what our no actually is for ourselves. And that on the other side, that, it's their world that's coming back towards you. And so that you can listen to it all, but you don't need to absorb it in. And if you do get triggered, whether positively or negatively, that you recognize what your triggers are and where they come from. What is resonating, what is not resonating, what is pushing your buttons. And that you have some internal work to ground back into yourself and work on that trigger, because it's got nothing to do with whoever triggered you. It's yours. It lives inside of you. And so on that journey, let people talk. And it could be people in your life right now. It could be clients of yours. It could be your coworkers. It could be your family. It could be friends. It could be people who you knew in past lives. And I know what I'm talking about because I've reinvented my life so many times. And there are so many different phases that I've gone through in order to explore different aspects of myself, because I'm a person who likes a lot of different kinds of things. And so I've allowed myself to explore. And I've also gotten lost along the way and tried different things out and that didn't work out, and, you know, switched it all up. But my core essence is still there. I've had a lot of different skins and I've had a lot of different expressions, and I still have a lot of different expressions that will unfold and that will continue to unfold. And depending on where I put my energy. And as long as you continue to explore life from that space, keep coming back to yourself and recognizing where you begin and end and where the next person begins and ends, then you can navigate that world from a more grounded and loving space for yourself and also for the people that you communicate with. Now, one thing I want to add to that is that a lot of people say, like, I come from an NLP world as well, where I've worked within that, and I use those skills and that framework. It's a framework that when I learned it, it was something that I already felt that I've been doing all my life, and then I was in this training and, you know, kind of semi-shocked, like, whoa, like somebody actually made a framework for what I'm trying to explain to everybody all the time. Now, in that world of NLP, then this description, more or less, of this kind of communication is that we're only as good as our communication and what is received by the other side. Now, I feel kind of dual about that, because it is true, we can elicit. Now, as a coach, as a person who wants to have impact on others, guiding them into safety, you know, it is an important part of my role as a facilitator in walking people through their emotional world as a coach, or in workshops or courses, walking people through that, you know, emotional inner world, through their body, getting out of the world of thoughts. That one of the biggest things that I have to do is elicit safety within a space, whether it's with one person or with more. And that's part of what I do. And of course, there are some parts that we can learn for sure, but there's some parts that come innately to each one of us, depending on your own experience of the world again. And, you know, you want, if you're guiding people, you want to elicit a state of curiosity. And so how do we do all of these things? And we can do it by allowing our personality to come out and trust what our gifts are in this world. Because not everybody can be a healer or a coach or a creative, you know, being in guiding other people into safety or into their, you know, exploration of their inner world. And it doesn't mean that not everybody should navigate that area for themselves, but not everyone is cut out to be, you know, an astronaut either, or has the natural skill sets. It's about also recognizing and being real with yourself about what your role is and questioning yourself. A lot of people come in to this world of coaching or entrepreneurship, and actually they want a more freelancing gig where somebody else is doing the work of searching and marketing, and you just show up to do your part. And there are other people who want to create, you know, their community, and they have a message or a vision for the world. And it's really separating that, because, you know, as I guided a lot of people through the process of becoming coaches or becoming, you know, stepping them on their way of healing or facilitating or whatever it is, that journey, you know, has a bunch of people. Some people are there to really deep dive into themselves. And that because there's so much transformation there, then they start going in different, directions. And I want to be able to share this with the world. But maybe your way of sharing it with the world is through making a documentary or writing a book or some other way, making art for other that triggers people at a deeper level, or writing poetry, or there are a lot of different ways of bringing healing to the world, instead of labeling everybody who's gone through healing processes wanting to become exactly what brought them through, because it's not for everyone, and not everyone has those innate skills that will blossom as you walk this path. And it's not to say that you can't go and walk the path and try, but being real with yourself with that as well. Now, I kind of sidetracked there. To come back to communication is only as good as what we communicate and how it's received. Then that would mean that you have to be so aware of all of the filters that you speak through at any given moment, and how it travels across, entering in through all of the filters of this other person who's receiving your words and your body communication and your full expression. And it lands inside of them, it elicits something within them, and then it comes out back at you from there. Now, we are not responsible, that's my belief, we're not responsible to know all of the filters of somebody else or all of the filters of ourselves. Now, we're responsible to work with the ones that we know, but expecting yourself to know all of the filters, we're blind to so many things. And so that's our human aspect as well. And knowing somebody else's, that's impossible to know all of their experience of life and how they absorb information, how they absorb expression. And so to also recognize that we're not responsible to carry that for somebody else. So that's where I feel a bit dual. Like, I totally understand that, like, there's a certain part of communication that is about how you're communicating. So questioning yourself, that's one thing. Questioning your communication to the world. If it's coming from a neutral space, a loving space, is it coming from fear? Is it coming from anger or emotion or being triggered? Like, where is it coming from? When you are bringing your change to your world, what are you rippling out in your rawness of transformation? And what is coming back, that's theirs. So on one hand, yes, question yourself, but on the other hand, do not take responsibility for somebody else's journey. That's for them to deal with. Their triggers that's for them to deal with. So I hope you start questioning yourself, that you start paying attention during all of the communication that you have. And it's not to step in a place of unrealness or non-realness or fakeness, where you should be, you be who you be. You don't need to elicit, positive reactions all the time. But notice what you're putting out there, question yourself, and recognize what is coming back towards you. And are you being truthful? Because it is also, just to add one little thought that came in our journey of transformation, often we're speaking from a space of, wanting to bring people along. Or perhaps not. Perhaps the opposite, that we want it to be a very private journey. And whatever's happening for you there, recognize that you are in a shift. And so to be conscious of your shift and how you come back to your center through all of this. Until we meet again, Peace out.